really quickly, for those that don't know, what is a Spring Week and when should you be applying, and to which firm should you be applying?
So a Spring Week is basically just like a 2-day program at a bank or some kind of company where you get an idea of what it's like.
Run away to Australia.
The beaches there are nice.
Yeah, and spiders and kangaroos.
But like Australia has really nice food as well. And like,
have you been there?
No, but I've seen MasterChef Australia so many
Oh,
times.
okay.
It's pretty much the same as being there.
Today we're having a really impressive and interesting guest. He's studying mathematics at University of Warwick, and he managed to get 7 Spring Weeks as well as a software engineering internship after his first year. He also is about to start his Quantitative Trading summer internship now, and what's more, he used to be a professional or semi-professional racing driver in the past. So without further ado, let's learn his secrets behind what he has achieved so far and more, just being a second-year university student. Please welcome Paul.
Woo, let's go, Paul.
Welcome.
Thank you very much for having me on.
Great to have you. Can you hear us okay?
Yep, everything's good.
Awesome. So why don't we start with your journey? You mentioned living in India for a period of time as well. Do you mind kind of telling us the story of Paul from beginning to now?
Okay, yeah, I mean, I've moved around a lot. Born in England, went to school here a little bit till I was 7, and then moved to India where I stayed for about 7 years. And yeah, great time. I loved living in India, and that's where I started karting at like 10 years old. And then from there I was, really getting into karting, enjoying school as well. Like maths has always kind of been my favorite subject. And then I was doing that alongside racing. And then, I really wanted to take racing seriously. So in 2017, I did my GCSEs a year early, and then I moved to England. So I took a year off and then started racing full time. In the end, racing didn't work out, but I'm very glad I did it. And since then, I've been kind of focusing on, maths and, what other things I can do. And then I did some Olympiads, which were really good for charging up like my maths passion. And then, coming to uni, go to Uni of Warwick, and right now applying for, or just have finished applying for trading jobs and software engineering internship last year.
That's interesting that you mentioned Olympiads, because here in the UK I don't really hear people mentioning them, but in Latvia it's a big deal and we're always sent to those international Olympiads. Yeah. So how were you representing UK, or was it in India?
No, I didn't get to like the IMO level, but I got to like national level in Olympiads.
It's still really good in the UK. They're so tough. Like when I first started, practicing for Olympiads, even like beginner ones, I would get 0 on a test with say 6 questions. I wouldn't be able to answer any of them, and I think partly because it's so hard, it does like force you to get better, and then through practicing I got a little bit better at the end. It's super competitive here from what I know.
Like England especially has a very good like coaching program for Olympiads. Like I think there's training camps and like a lot of events for people to go through, and that like helps them. I haven't been to any, but like I've heard like in the Olympiad community it's pretty good.
So would you say it helped you with your studies and with applications?
Yes, definitely. Like because Olympiads are like really tough, it kind of, to rise to that level, it pushes you so much that like regular like A levels and things like that, GCSE becomes easier. Because Olympiad questions you like get into like thinking, kind of like you start doing proofs and other types of like problems you don't normally see at school, and because of that it makes the school stuff easier, and it also kind of gives you a head start at uni.
Definitely.
Can we talk a little bit more about your childhood, kind of like growing up, where the interest in maths actually came about? Because I mean, the world tends to be like binary, right? There's like people who like maths and people who don't like maths. And I never understood it because I've kind of been like between the two.
Yeah.
There have been some parts of my life where I'm just like, oh, I love maths, and some parts where I don't care about it. In university, I didn't care about it that much, but in high school, I did. How did you kind of find your passion for maths? And do you think like a job in sort of quant trading is the best place for a mathematician to go?
Okay, so yeah, starting off, I just like maths. Like I find solving problems good. Like it's very satisfying, and like especially tricky ones. Like there's a nice feeling when you like are able to do it. And in terms of careers for mathematicians, yeah, I haven't done my internship yet, but it does seem very exciting. Like quant trading in particular is kind of like a combination of like maths and like karting in a sense, and that karting was really intense and thrilling and like in the moment. So that's kind of like why I gravitated towards trading. So I think like maybe it's a good combination. I mean, it's very mathsy. Like there's a lot of quite advanced statistics involved, and like there's a significant amount of coding too. So if you're into that, which if you're into maths, I think you would be. I think it's a good place to go into.
Very interesting.
Did you have that interest in maths alongside when you were racing, and do you think the two are complementary in any way?
Yeah, like I think I was pretty interested in maths from very young, and it did help in some things like racing. Like when doing data analysis for the karts, like I was pretty good at reading telemetry data, but sometimes also like with maths you take a long time to deliberate over problems and you think a lot. And one of my problems in racing was that sometimes I would overthink. So like maybe that's not too great, but maybe the racing even complements that, like because it forces you to be on the spot. You think quite quickly, and then that maybe helps the maths.
And so like obviously it must take a lot of your time as well being a racing driver. Were you quite a hard worker at school? Did you do well? To be performing in doing Olympiads, clearly you must have worked quite hard at school too.
Yeah, so Olympiads was after I stopped racing. Like I only got into like Olympiads is kind of like a full-time thing, if you will. So that was, and I didn't want to, like after racing was done, I was like, okay, I need something to do every morning. So then I went to Olympiads. But when I was racing, that took up a lot of time. Like I had, I think 1 year 60% attendance at school, just because of going to racing. And that's actually why I took a year off, because I wouldn't be able to put the effort I needed into, trying to make that happen if I had to also go to school.
So did you take a year off before university, or?
No, after 10th grade. So after GCSE, that year that I skipped, I then took off when I came to England. And yeah.
Great. Shall we jump into the careers introduction?
Sure. So one of the main topics of today's episode is mainly also to talk about spring weeks and how you actually managed to get 7 of them, because that's a lot in your first year. Yeah, especially also the G research when you were surrounded by PhD students and master students. So if you could tell us how did you achieve this?
I mean, it was a tough procedure, definitely. Like a lot of applications, and like after the first spring week it got better, but right at the beginning of the procedure I thought this is going so badly. Like my first acceptance was after about 20 rejections for spring weeks. And yeah, it's a long, hard process, but I feel like it does pay off.
Is it a numbers game then?
Yeah, a little bit. Like, yeah. So some of the procedures like they're quite ridiculous with like the tests and do the CV thing and the cover letter, and like to aim to get your first one 100% right, I don't think is realistic, because you need to get used to that. So yeah, like the first few applications just treat it as like a learning procedure, and then hopefully it gets better. Like yeah, there are definitely things to do. Like for tests for spring weeks, I think there's this website, Assessment Day or Job Test Prep, and that helps you practice like the tests for getting into the spring weeks. And then there's also, you learn how to write better CVs and better cover letters, which helps as well.
And how many overall did you do, the applications? And how many offers and interviews have you done approximately?
Spring weeks don't interview as much as other things. Many things it's just tests, and then you, I think, test CV and you get the job. For some there are interviews. So I don't remember exactly how many I had interviews for. I had, I think, maybe for the ones that did interview me, 2 interviews per company, and probably 3 or 4 companies who interviewed me. And that was out of about 30 applications.
Okay.
Yeah.
And what exactly would you say you've learned? So how to make your application stand out and how to collect all of those spring weeks?
Yeah, I mean, it's a tough process. Like, a little bit of luck helps. And I feel like writing some things that are interesting in your CV helps. Like, I think I saw one of your shorts on YouTube, and you're talking about guitar, and like that like gives like a hook, something interesting to write about and talk about in interviews as well.
Yeah.
So like, I think that interesting part definitely helps. And like, for me, I think the racing was pretty interesting. But then also like strong grades helps. You know, if you did anything during A level, any like extracurricular activities. Like, I did NCS, and that was like a good thing. That was like a summer camp, and it was good to put on. Now, sometimes it can be discouraging of, oh, so this thing that's like entry level experience, I already need to have like all of these things for. In which case, like, there's plenty of people who got a lot of spring weeks and they didn't do they were not so into the whole careers thing before uni. And I think then it's take what you do have, like whatever you have done, and find a neat way to present it. Make sure your CV looks good, well formatted, and then maybe practice a bit more for the tests, because if you can get through more of those, then that'll increase your rate of getting through when you get into interviews.
Is there any particular knowledge, maybe theoretical knowledge, that you must have in order to apply for quantitative trading related spring weeks or summer internships?
For quantitative trading, I think there's only a few. I think prop shops, proprietary trading firms. Some of them have internships, like Jane Street, Optiva, Citadel have an insight day. Maths knowledge is good there. Like, some firms have some firms do mental maths tests. Like, there's only a few firms, and that's like a pretty niche area of prop trading, but for that needs practice. Like, the mental maths tests are really hard. But I don't think that's representative of what you need to know as a whole. I think in general, being numerate, like being able to quickly read graphs and, you know, do percentage calculations, ratios, that kind of thing is important.
How good is your mental maths? If we were to put you on the spot, 6 times 25.
150.
Ooh.
That's good.
That was an easy one.
8 times 49.
392.
Could be
right. We take your word.
Wait, 8 times 49. 8 times 50 is 400 minus 8, which is 392.
That's what you said.
Yeah,
Amazing.
that's true. We checked with Google now.
It's true.
No, I wonder.
Doing that under pressure. Oh.
Really, Alex, on a podcast? But you smashed it. So.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
How much of your current role or your incoming role depends on that mental maths and ability to think quickly?
The company I'm working at, DRW, okay, thinking quickly, definitely is important, and being able to, you know, kind of make decisions under pressure. Like, pure mental maths, maybe not as much as some other places, but like, there was definitely a little bit of mental maths in the application process. But yeah, going back to the prerequisite knowledge, like, although not specifically asked for, I feel like just general reading around in finance is helpful. Like, just take a start at reading the FT and all of that. And like, when you're a first year or just getting into it, none of it makes sense. Like, the first time I read the FT, there was just all of these words that, like, I don't know what it means. And then there's percentages and like, okay, something about this, obviously that leads to this thing. And like, I don't even know what these words mean. How can that obviously lead to that? But like, getting a start helps. And then when you need to actually learn it properly, if you've just seen a few of these things earlier, it does help get through that.
What about computer science knowledge and programming knowledge skills?
Helpful, like, for trading in particular, I think it's not absolutely necessary. Like, you can be very successful without knowing it, but that is a good skill to have. Like, being able to code a little bit in Python and do some things is helpful. Like, it's definitely learnable. Like, part of it is after you get to a point, you realize everything is just Googled, but you need to know what to Google to like solve your particular problem. And if you can if you know enough about the coding and programming to Google what you need on the spot, then you're all right. That's reasonable.
So knowing which questions to ask.
Know the basic terminology and like what you should ask to solve your problem.
I guess like the saying, you measure someone's intelligence based on the questions they ask, not the things they say, right? So what did you learn then from those initial few applications? You kind of treated them a bit as a bit of a learning curve. Would you say you picked up things from doing them that influenced your later applications and informed them?
Yes, definitely. Like first, like the whole like skills that aren't based on like anything you've done, just things you can build on the spot, like presentation of your CV, how to write emails, how to write your cover letter. That's something that you get with practice and like looking back at previous things you've done and what you can do better. Also, helping your friends out, like if you ask them to send them your CV, to send them their CV, send you their CV, and you send them yours. Working together like that helps because you see what other people are doing and then you get ideas from a bunch of places.
Yeah.
And then go like for the second application season for summers this year, like what the Springs taught me was, you know, be early in terms of applying. Try and apply as early as possible. And like I put in a lot of effort for the summer application thing because if you put like, it's not you get as much as the amount of effort you put in. If you do a little bit of effort, you'll get a little bit of results. No, it's if you do below a certain amount, you'll get no results whatsoever. And after that, then you'll start to get some. So I tried to commit fully to that during first term. And I think that helped out.
What kept you motivated? Did you have like an application buddy? Was there someone you were sharing this stuff with, like sharing CVs? Like I know Manu and Angellika did applications together as well. Maybe you guys could talk a bit about how that helped you as well.
Yeah. I think it's like absolutely crucial. Angellika and I, we definitely.
We didn't do it like together, like on the same stuff.
At the same time, at the same stuff, but like.
You were generally applying to internships and jobs.
Yeah, and I remember our previous guest, Neeraj, who came over, the episode isn't out, but hopefully it'll be out by the time you're watching this.
Definitely.
Me and Neeraj worked very closely doing applications. Like we would do assessment center prep together. I remember like there was literally midnight in the student center at UCL. The following day, he has an assessment center for some investment banking job. Yeah, it was literally the best time. Like,
it is actually kind of fun. Like if you have someone to go through it with, that makes it so much more fun.
Yeah, it was so fun. He would like do his thing and like do a case study, and then I would say maybe you should do this, maybe you should do this, and we would just improve. And we did like we did so many things like just getting better with each other. I think that was crucial. But yeah, like, I don't know, Paul. Like
no, I exactly that experience. Like a bunch of my friends, we formed like a group chat about getting into internships, and then also in general, like at Warwick, there's quite a few people who are interested in this, and just like feeding off each other's energy is really helpful. And like when say if you get a string of rejections, like having people to like who've got your back, that is really nice, and it's really helps.
But then the results, they diverge. Some people get like everything, and some people get nothing.
And like part of it, I feel like is also like for the people who didn't get it, some of them I know are still really, really smart, so they'll find their way in something. Like maybe it didn't work out for this, but good things will happen.
Did it? Sorry, Manu.
No, something I just wanted to, on that very point, there's lots of students, like in our audience, that generally expect to see first-year students, second-year students, third-year students, people before uni, and people in their careers. For the people specifically who are just starting out at university and missed the boat on the spring weeks, because a lot of people are in this situation. I was, Angellika, you actually got your springs. I definitely was. Lots of students are after first year, no spring weeks.
I didn't even apply.
You didn't even apply? Oh, wow. So, it feels like, is the summer internship going to work out without a spring week on my CV? Did I just like completely mess up? So for those students who feel that now they have nothing on their CV in first year and you're in penultimate year and you're applying for summer internships, what would you say for those students in terms of picking yourself up? Because you just said, you know, lots of smart friends.
Yeah, like, it's I don't know if I'd say picking yourself up, as in, like, if you didn't have spring weeks, you're now, like, I say if you didn't have spring weeks, you're, like, now kind of average or above average. Like, the people who did get spring weeks are, like, they were very enthusiastic from first year, and they kind of did extra, and now that's helping them through summers. But when you get summers, it's not, like, a necessary thing to have spring weeks. Like, in terms of, like, how to do it, if you, like, didn't have anything on your CV, it's just try and do things to get things on your CV. And I feel like that is possible within a short period of time. Like, if you could start your own projects or get involved in your societies, or, like, find something that you are doing or have done and try and present it in a good way. So maybe, like, one thing you could do is make a Word doc of things you've already done. It doesn't need to be Spring Week or, you know, insight into careers and planning 17 years in advance. It can just be like, whatever you've done, write that down and write some reflections and things you learned. And point is, things that would sound good in an interview or things that can sound good on a CV. And then write that down in your CV and, you know, maybe practice with a friend or in the mirror talking about that. And I think that would help.
I think that's a great point. Like, a lot of things in life are, like, about how you spin things, how you position things. Even if you've just worked in a supermarket, there's something to be said about you learned about client care. You had to be organised. You had to be at a certain place at a certain time.
That's a pretty intense job as well.
You have to, whatever you've done, you have to be able to sell it a certain way. But also, like, going back to applications, did it ever get competitive with your friends? And did you find that there was a good way of spinning it or framing it so that it became a bit more fun and a bit less daunting? Like, I heard someone speak about treating it as a bit of a game, like a competition with their friends. How many rejections can we get? In the end, they got a training contract from that.
I don't know about the competition with your friends thing, because I feel like that can go downhill quite fast in terms of, like, people feeling bad, because, like, when these things are, like, multiplied, so if you get one success, that helps you get a lot more successes, and so the gaps can grow quite big. But in terms of, like, them being by your side and you being by their side, that definitely helps. So, like, supporting each other through, and, like, even mock interviewing each other, doing things like that. Yeah, kind of treating it as a game, like, oh, okay. Like, for example, with the thing of mental maths, me and a bunch of my friends, we would compete on the score for that. And that's, you know, when someone beats you, it's not like, oh, great, like, I'm now going to be depressed. It's, okay, I want to beat them. Because that's something you can practice readily. And, you know, I would say things like that are good to compete on. And, yeah, having other people there definitely brings the energy up and helps you do it.
How did you hear about Spring Weeks? Did you know before university about their existence?
Yeah, just about. Like, I think during the COVID summer I heard about it. I was kind of thinking, okay, what do I do now? Mm-hmm. And I heard of Spring Weeks through around then. I think just reading online about things to do and, like, stuff like that. Yeah, so I read a little bit about them before uni started.
Okay.
Because that's a big problem, isn't it? People coming in from school, international students who have no idea.
Yeah. I mean, like, people, like, I feel like no matter how late you start, once you get into it, if you're enthusiastic, then you can raise yourself up to the level. You can catch up on what you missed, if you will.
Just a question about the timeline. So if you knew about the Spring Weeks before university, when did you start applying?
I started applying. I actually left it a bit late because I spent like October faffing around. Oh. I didn't really, and Spring Week applications are kind of a lot of effort. You have to make the CV and then you have to do this and that. I was just not really feeling it. So I kind of got applications in like November-ish, some of them maybe end of November. And I think that was actually a little bit late. Like, I think I was getting some premature rejections just by being that late. So I think, like October, November, if you can kind of get them in, like, really as early as possible, like within a week of the place opening, try and get it on that. Actually, some places only open in like December. So for that, you're not late. But the places that do open, get your application in quick.
Are you considering doing a master's or PhD? Or do you go straight away?
Yeah, like I'm considering doing a master's, but I'm not sure. Like I'll see how this internship goes, and yeah, I kind of want to get into the thick of it as soon as possible. And also, like since I was homeschooled, learning is not something I really feel I need a university for. Like even if I started working at this thing, I'd probably still do maths for fun. Or if I needed to learn something for the job, I would just like learn it. And I'm sure there's smart people at these firms who could teach it to you. So yeah.
Sorry,
So I really want to touch on that before we move on. Homeschooled.
Yeah.
What drew the kind of decision? Your parents, did they decide that we're going to homeschool?
No, it was just me homeschooling. So, like, you can get a textbook and you just like read that, and then eventually you get better at it, and now you don't really need anyone to do it.
Oh,
so,
okay.
What drove the decision to do that is that I needed to travel around for racing, and I needed to move to England. And in England, I feel like it's pretty strict with the school system, your attendance. So I would not be able to just have like 60% attendance or something like that. So that's why I chose homeschooling. And in terms of like an academic environment, I really enjoyed it. Like I had the freedom to just explore whatever I want. I can go on whatever tangent I need to. If something needs more time, I'll spend more time. If I don't feel like studying this day, I don't. Like it was a good choice for me. I know some people who have done it and they haven't liked it. So you have to weigh out personally whether it's the thing for you. But for me, I certainly liked it a lot.
I mean, as a kid, I would imagine that if you don't feel like studying, you wouldn't do it. Is the natural state of things. So that's the danger with it, right?
Yeah, I do like studying. I do like maths in particular and like programming and stuff like that. So it was enjoyable for me. And, sometimes I'd just compete with myself, like, how quickly can I do this? Like, I think I did AS further maths in about a month, just like trying to go as quickly as I could.
That's so impressive.
It gets easier. Like, people think it's like quite, ridiculous, but once you start doing it in the beginning, when I started, it was so overwhelming. I'm like, okay, so now I need to get textbooks. How do I get textbooks? So then you look at which textbooks are needed for GCSE. But okay, now what if this textbook doesn't have anything? So now you learn how to check the requirements of the syllabus of the exam with what's in a textbook. Once you find a textbook that's got enough, great, now you just read the textbook. These are good textbooks. You follow through with the textbook. Then, okay, one of the hard things is when you have a question and you don't get an answer. Especially when you're learning a topic. You'll be like, okay, so I don't understand the explanation. I don't know what to ask. And I have no idea about anything that's going on. You got to push through that. Like, just try learning like some easier things, or just chip away at something, and eventually, or like if you have people to talk to, go there or ask online forums. You build up a way of getting through it, and then that feeling of being completely lost, which happens a lot, you get more comfortable with, and yeah, that helps a lot. Like, now going into university, especially, it eases the transition because university is a lot more independent, and yeah, like being comfortable with that kind of independence and lack of structure helps.
Would you say racing is quite a lonely sport?
Yeah. It depends on how you frame it. Like, you obviously have the paddock and, your other drivers and, everyone around, and you can be in quite a tight-knit community because it's so intense, and like a lot of people's dreams are based on this. Families give up so much. So in that sense, because it's so like intense, it's like a pressure cooker, people can get close. But then things change very quickly. Some people, they drop out, some people go to other things. They want to move to a different country because there's better opportunities. Some say, okay, racing's not happening anymore. They go to do a different thing, stop racing. Like, at the end, it's you and your unit of support. So my family was extremely like helpful with that. Yeah. Like they were supporting me all the way through. But actually, I make it sound like they were not. Like, without them, it would not have happened.
Yeah.
So yeah, like in that sense, the family was really good, but it was kind of us. And like, yeah, so it's kind of like you guys alone. Personally as well, it does get tough because you're kind of trying to do something that you don't really need to do. Like, no one needs to get into a sport or become an F1 driver. You can do other things that have more well-specified routes. You don't have to do this. And in that case, yeah, sometimes it's a bit like you'll see all these other people doing things and you will just not have that. Like, you either can't do it because you need to work or train or study, or like they won't be able to like relate to some of the problems you've been having.
Sorry.
Sorry, Angel. It's just, I find it interesting because you mentioned earlier, like, you know, to be able to do well in exams, you need to at some point look at the syllabus, and it's like the students who go out of their way and think like a teacher tend to do better. You know, you're not relying on someone to spoon feed you. Do you think racing, you know, you're in the car by yourself, being homeschooled, do you think that taught you to be quite independent and effective by yourself?
Yeah. Like, I'm still getting better at it. Like, I'm by no means the finished product, but yeah, it does teach you a little bit about how to be independent and resourceful. Like, really, like, when you say you can't do something, is it because that is not possible, or like, if you find some way, can you make something happen, or like a step to that happen? Yeah, how much water can you squeeze from the stone?
And how do you keep motivated?
I don't know. I mean, I kind of enjoy it. It's if you go karting, it is a lot of fun. Like, it is so thrilling, and I yeah, that's kind of what pushed me through the karting phase. And then you look at F1, you see these F1 drivers. It's a really cool sport. Like, that's all I wanted to do. And then yeah, I feel after that ended, I tried to find another thing, and like now I'd say I'm pretty passionate about maths. Like. That was kind of like while I was racing, that was just on the side, but then when racing stopped, I kind of made it my main thing, thinking about maths and, you know, wanting to be, you know, put everything into it. And yeah, I say motivational questions are always tough. Like, at the end, it's just, yeah, I like doing it. But yeah, not always can you rely on motivation. Like, sometimes it gets tough. Like, you hate it. And yeah.
What helps you?
I mean, like, sometimes you do fail. Like, I have failed, and yeah, it's not great, but you try and pick up and go after. And then after that, like, yeah, knowing when, okay, this period is like, I've got like an intense period coming up, just you're not gonna like it, but just kind of push through, is how I like try and think about it. And then, you know, try and make it easier for yourself. Like, lean on your family or friends. Do something fun once in a while. Like, during exams, I was just studying so much, and I had like nothing was going in anymore. So, you know, then I took a day off, and yeah, that was very much needed. All of my friends were still studying hard for the exam, and this was like 2 days before, but I needed that day off. So yeah, like, as you do the experience, you'll find what works for you, and you'll be able to make your own like decisions on what you need to function.
Can we talk a bit more about racing? You mentioned earlier that you met Max Verstappen. What was that like?
Oh, it was very... I only met him for a very short period. He was at a race in Genk, which is a karting track in Belgium. That's his home track. And this was for the CIK-FIA European Academy Trophy, which is the name of the championship we were in.
Nice.
And yeah, it was very cool. Like, he's like, in karting, he was very meteoric. He won almost everything. He was really good in karting, and like, at this point he was a Toro Rosso driver, so he was 17. He was only like a year and a half out of karts anyway, but it was very cool meeting him. Like, he had like obviously a lot of fans, very popular in the area, and yeah, it was cool meeting him. Yeah. What
did you take away from that experience? Was like, you know, what kind of energy were you getting from him? Was there anything you learned in terms of mindset, personality?
Like, in terms of that meeting in particular, I don't know how much you can get from like a 10-second meeting, but in terms of like seeing him and like other drivers, like Lewis Hamilton is one of my favorite F1 driver. Like, he is my favorite F1 driver, and like, when you look at them and how they go about things, like, you can kind of draw that as inspiration.
Yeah.
And like, specifics would probably be like, yeah. So okay, in terms of actual driving, some of their overtakes are just like beautiful. Like, how they constructed that, you're like, okay, wow, that's like art.
Yeah.
So that's kind of one type of inspiration. But then also, there's a lot of work that goes in, and you see how motivated they are and how much drive they have. Like not just Lewis Hamilton, Max Verstappen. Everyone on those grids is working very, very hard. It pushes you to a high standard, and then you start working hard yourself because you're around this, energetic. You're in this good environment. Yeah.
I guess, yeah, to kind of finalize the point you mentioned earlier, you picked up a lot of principles, or you learned a lot of lessons from racing that you were able to apply to your wider life.
Yeah.
And your career perhaps as well. What are those?
Working hard doesn't guarantee success. Still try anyway. Yeah, that about sums it up. Like, yeah, if you don't work hard, it's hard for things to happen, obviously. And then even when you do work hard, you can work really hard and like, oh, this is my dream, I want to do this and that. And then sometimes still things don't work out. So you try and push through that. And, if you get through some of the rejections and failures, then you get into really good things. Like, you're able to capitalize on when things do go right. And then, yeah, it feels good then.
Yeah, I mean, on the topic of like working hard, my view is that there's a lot of luck involved in like everything. I actually maybe a bit extreme, but I think sometimes, the people that work the hardest never get their work recognized, and there's so much luck involved.
Yeah.
But I do agree with you. Like, I don't know who said this, who the quote is attributable to, but like, luck favors those who are prepared.
Yeah.
I'm not sure who said that, but that's something I heard. I think my mom told it to me when I was in school, and it's just always been in my head. So I agree with you. Like, you can't do anything about being lucky or being unlucky, but you can control the variable.
Like, be best prepared for it. Yeah. And then, yeah, like also like a lot of these things, like even going into careers in finance, a lot of it is luck, and like where you, like if you came from certain backgrounds, it does help. You have then advantages. So if you're not able to do it, then like don't feel too bad about it, because like no one knows your exact situation. And I think as well right now there's a lot of programs for people who may not have had the most privileged backgrounds, and target those programs because they will help you out. They're looking for stories like yours where it may not have been the easiest thing, and you may not have had all of this finance experience, but if you can show that you're motivated and enthusiastic, I think people will help you out there.
I'm not sure if it's true, but I've heard somewhere that if we are prepared for failure and we're expecting it, and then we fail, we actually have dopamine release in our brain. So, like, we should be prepared for failure to not feel that bad. But I don't know if it's true or not.
So it makes you happy to fail
Yeah.
if you
Yeah.
expect
No, certainly, like, hope for the best, prepare for the worst, yeah. Yeah, so, like, definitely having some backup plans in case things, like, do go bad. That's helpful. Have other options. So, like, say if you've got career plans or, some goals, think, okay, ideally I would like this to happen. If this does not happen, then this is what I'll do. So, in the case of internships, it could be if you don't get this internship, maybe there are other internships you could do. If you don't get any internship, then is there some volunteering you could do, or is there a project you could start yourself? Like, have like around 3 to 4, how many ever you want, kind of backup plans, and then, yeah, that helps in the case that you don't get quite your top choice, you don't fall too low. Like, you still have something going for you.
I actually think it comes across like how optimistic or how confident you are in the actual process. Like, I mean, if I can only speak from my experience, but I kind of always enjoyed investing, always. Yeah. And so I guess that comes across when you're actually speaking to an interviewer, like the fact that you're good and you're confident, and that, like, as opposed to, the whole like, I'm an optimist, I'm good, I know that if this doesn't work out, I'll have another opportunity.
Yeah.
I think that really, kind of comes across when you're talking to someone and they're like looking to recruit you versus someone who's, I wouldn't say desperate, but just kind of, it comes across when you really need the job.
Okay.
You see what I mean?
I think I can kind of get what you're hinting at, yeah. At the end of the day, you're the, like, biggest person in your corner. So, like, yeah, having that belief that you can do it helps a lot. yeah, I agree with you. Like, in terms of confidence during interviews, it feels like it makes the whole process better. Like, there's some interviews where I've been feeling really good about this interview, and then it flowed really well. I'm like, okay, yeah, that was good. And then some interviews where, you know, maybe you're not quite feeling it, and then, you know, there's a few problems here and there, and there was a little bit of friction. They didn't go quite as well. So, yeah, and as you do more, I feel like you can get better at being more confident. Yeah, that's definitely a skill to build up.
Yeah, I think it's quite underrated. I think it's really important because people prepare for like the tests, they prepare for the questions, but I don't think enough people kind of just prepare like mentally.
Yeah.
You know, so in third year, well, actually my master's was when I got the best results with my recruitment, and at the time I was kind of just feeling the best about myself as a person as well at the same time. You know, like when I first joined uni, worried about academics, had put on a bit of like extra weight, and I wasn't feeling the best about myself. I think all these things kind of matter, just like you just, you know, just feeling yourself. Yeah. And just being a happy person. I think that needs to come across. I don't think it's like the deciding factor, but I think it could.
It helps, yeah. And like
more like nuance.
Yeah, and like that kind of thing kind of helps with everything. Like it can like positively influence many aspects of your life. Yeah, yeah, definitely.
Exercising releases endorphins. It's a great thing to do. Is there anything you do like to kind of help you feel like yourself, like what Manu's saying, you know, like when do you feel at your best, and what is it you're doing? What are your daily routines?
It's a good question, actually.
Yeah, I've been trying to get better with the routine. I haven't always been the best, like especially with, you know, sleeping enough, but I can definitely say sleeping is good. And being well rested, that helps so much. But apart from that, like...
So you're not about the 5 a.m. lifestyle?
No, I have done it, and it's really unpleasant. But then, you know, also, like, sometimes first year of uni, like, it's good fun, and, you know, you don't care too much about sleep. But, yeah, like, in terms of things to do to, you know, feel kind of happy and, like, all of that, like, going outside, getting fresh air, I definitely feel like staying inside all day and like just studying, that can be kind of, you know, like not the best for your mental health. So, you know, going outside, meeting your friends, that kind of thing is very enjoyable for me. A good training session, like a hard training session helps. Yeah.
Do you mean like going to the gym or on the track?
Yeah, gym. When I was racing, back when I was doing that was very nice. Yeah.
When was the last time you went go-karting racing?
The last time I was seriously racing, like I did a one-off race in 2019, but like the last time I had a full season was like 17, and that wasn't a season. That was like a few races. Like budgets were low then. 2016 was probably the last, you know, proper racing season I had, which is quite a long time ago now that I think about it. But yeah, it was an influential time for what I did do.
Seems like that chapter is kind of closed, that book. Do you ever get the itch? Like, I kind of want to be on the track. And
so many times. Like, especially when I go around karting tracks or I watch a race, I just feel like, oh my god, I really want to be driving. But yeah, I try and, you know, channel that into things that I can do on a regular basis. And yeah, watching F1 is nice though. Cool cars, it looks fun.
How important is it to like put your time into those things that mean a lot to you, that you enjoy doing? Because I know you mentioned missing about 40% of school before, like, you know, I know it can be quite time consuming, but is it also important to switch off, especially when you're, you know, someone as successful as you are when it comes to applications and academics? Can you afford to take that time out?
He said he took a day off, Alex.
Yeah,
what do you want?
I did take a day off.
A day off.
Yeah, like you need to, like, for me, I find that like a lot of, for these things, like in first term I was focusing a lot on applications, and yeah, I did make some sacrifices there. And then like in, you know, subsequent terms, catching up on some of the maths work you've missed, or like working on other projects, that does require a sacrifice from like other things. Maybe you can't do every single uni activity that you want, but like I personally think it's worth it, given like I really want to go into this career. This is what matters to me. But for each person, you have to make that decision yourself. Like everything has trade-offs. Is what you can get from this trade-off worth it to you? And then you decide based on that. But yeah, like recently, like with exams, it's been quite an intense period, and like there's been times where it's just been really unpleasant with, you know, the amount of work and, you know, sometimes just not sleeping enough. And like I tried really hard to push through this, like, you know, be disciplined about it, like not rely on motivation. Just sometimes you can't be motivated, just get it done, and hopefully it pays off in the future.
So Paul, we've spoken a little bit about time management and balancing things you enjoy with your commitments, especially when you want to be successful. Have you thought much about energy management? Do you ever feel burnt out, and what do you do to avoid that?
Yeah, definitely. Like, especially when periods get intense, where there's like a lot of, say, deadlines coming up, or like exams, and then you've got interviews, and then you've got things that have pretty sharp time deadlines. It can get quite intense then, and like very draining. Recently it's been very busy with exams, so that has been quite tough. But yeah, like I'm quite determined to try and get this done, so I do sacrifice some other things, maybe not going to every single, you know, like uni social event or whatever, and trying to get this done. I think I could be, like, I'm still learning how to, you know, manage time effectively, do the most efficient things. But yeah, like, sometimes, like, you do have to sacrifice doing other things, and you still get burnt out. And yeah, thankfully, there is, like, a finish line in sight, and, you know, there's a period of rest afterwards. But for that short time, it's very, very tiring and quite intense getting through, like, you know, having that group of friends, and, you know, being able to, you know, occasionally maybe take half a day or a day off, like in the thick of it, that really helps keep it sane. And that's probably like a energy management technique. Yeah, like I just think, yeah, there's some periods, you know, over the year where it gets very intense, and some where it's more relaxed. Like whenever it's in the most intense period, I think, oh my God, I was really just relaxing. Like I was on the beach earlier on. I was not working at this level. And yeah, I think it kind of ebbs and flows how intense things get. And when it gets intense, like hunker down for the ride kind of thing.
Yeah. I think that's normal too.
Do you have some sort of structure the way you approach your work, or do you generally do very intense period of work when it's near the deadline, or do you start working straight after getting the assignment? Or
it depends on what kind of thing it is. So like I try and do the assignments as soon as, like, I don't always end up doing them as soon as I can. Like a lot of times they've been, you know, left pretty soon to the deadline. But that's something I could work on. But there's some things that, like, they will not be able to be done the night before. Like things where you need, like, learning, like deeper understanding and like creativity, like some understanding some maths concepts where there's all of this like terse notation and, you know, understanding what is this theorem trying to say or whatever. If you have, okay, I have to get this done in 3 hours, that's too much pressure to be able to, like, think that deeply. So those kinds of things I try and look like months beforehand and like spend lots of time mulling over those kinds of things. And then, yeah, that helps it like build the intuition over that time. Now, for other things, like things that are reasonably like quick and can be done on the spot, like an assignment for something you already know how to do, that can be done reasonably quickly, and then you just fit it in to wherever you need to do and whenever you can. And sometimes that is, you know, pretty close to the last minute. But yeah, like try and leave time so that it can actually be finished. Yeah.
All right, that's great that you sometimes approach it way earlier than the deadline. So it's a good way to do it. Yeah. And now, just to wrap up, we've already talked about really interesting, cool things. Thank you for telling us. Let's touch on your childhood and current goals and dreams. So, when you were a child, who did you want to become? And right now, who are you aiming to become in 5 and 10 years?
I mean, like when I was a kid, I just wanted to be Lewis Hamilton.
I was gonna say, I was like, if I was to guess, it would be Lewis Hamilton.
Yeah, my favorite F1 driver, favorite sportsman. I wanted to be an F1 driver for a really long time, and worked hard towards that. That chapter's kind of closed for me, but I think I've found other things. Like right now, I'm really into maths and quant trading. I like programming as well. So I think I would like to pursue that and see like how far I can take it. Like whatever I want to do, I want to put 100% into it, and really get passionate about it and enjoy doing it. In terms of like longer term, I'd like to be able to do it well enough that I can start being creative and maybe designing my own things. So if I'm working at a trading firm, be able to like research new ideas or come up with new systems. I think that would be quite exciting.
And like 10 years from now,
10 years from now,
what would be the dream?
I don't know. I really like for some questions that just don't exist an answer. Like, I don't know.
It's just too far out.
That's too far out. Like I could say something, but I know from experience things change quite quickly.
Yeah.
So yeah, I imagine something kind of mathsy, and hopefully exciting.
Great.
Amazing.
So at the end of the podcast, usually we take a Polaroid picture with the guests, and we've been racking up these pictures. So yeah, Alex, do you want to do the honors? It's
of course.
Sort of been sort of a tradition at this point.
I did so well last time. Like, it'd be rude not to. So last time this happened, the one person I managed to cut out of the photo was our first ever guest. Ingmar.
But we took two.
How should we do it? Should we take the headsets off?
Yeah.
We took two in the end. Thank you guys for listening. Go on, Manu.
Yeah. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you in the next episode. Thanks so much, Paul, for coming. Is there anything you'd like to say at the end? Anything you want to plug? Anything at all?
No, not really. Thank you very much for having me on. I really enjoyed the discussion, and yeah, this was a lot of fun.
Amazing.
Great to have you, Paul. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We're so organized.
Yeah.
Yeah, wait. I don't want my head to be too big again. At least from where I'm.
Oh!
That was amazing.